With open-world games being as popular as they are right now, it's almost impossible to keep up with all the latest releases, which leads to many promising games getting brushed under the rug for one reason or another. But many of these underrated or underappreciated open worlds deserve to be tried out, and here are 15 of the best open worlds that you probably haven't played, but definitely should. Sons of the Forest. Sons of the Forest is a brutal survival game that tasks players to hold their backs against cannibalistic primals with only a limited few resources to spare. It presents its brutal world with gorgeous graphics and striking attention to detail, and the gradual process of collecting resources and becoming more powerful is one that will keep you hooked for dozens upon dozens of hours. Add to that the ability to enjoy exploring with friends, and Sons of the Forest becomes a great option for a co-op open-world experience. Season: A Letter to the Future. Season: A Letter to the Future takes place in a small open world that's populated with blissful meadows, dense forests, and serene temples. Developed by Scavenger Studio, Season: A Letter to the Future is a riveting tale about the nature of change, so it's fitting that the gameplay revolves around collecting as many sights and sounds as possible to carry it over to the next season. It doesn't take more than a handful of hours to beat, but it's definitely a great experience if you're in the mood for something more relaxing. Infamous. Infamous was a one-of-a-kind superhero game that was released back in 2009 on the PlayStation 3. It was also one of the rare examples of open-world games done right. Taking on the role of Cole McGrath, players can partake in adrenaline-filled missions and use the protagonist's electricity-based superpowers and cause mayhem in Empire City. Given that it was released almost 14 years ago, many of you might have missed this open-world stunner. Need for Speed Unbound. Need for Speed Unbound's changes to the franchise's art style, which might be up to debate, but that doesn't make its brand of drift-heavy arcade racing any less enthralling. You get to explore a vast map that's filled to the brim with different types of races, which will keep you grinding for hours on end, and there's a sizable array of vehicles to choose from and customize to your own liking. There are a few new additions and changes to how things work in this entry, but Unbound is still a Need for Speed game at its core, and a really fun one at that. SUBNAUTICA: Below Zero. SUBNAUTICA is one of the few games that manage to weave together an intricate story with spectacular survival gameplay, and the game garnered a huge fan following for those merits. Meanwhile, its sequel, Below Zero, has largely remained unappreciated in comparison, which is a shame, because it takes the concepts of the original and crafts an even larger net of ideas this time around. With new vehicles to ride, mysteries to solve, and frigid biomes to explore, Below Zero is a massive survival game with plenty of quality content spread across its large open world. And the refinements it brings over the original make up for a markedly better game, and it deserves to be experienced by every Subnautica fan. SNOWRUNNER. On the topic of surviving frigid conditions, we have SNOWRUNNER, which puts us in the driver's seat of massive trucks that carry cargo from point A to point B, while overcoming all sorts of obstacles that lie in that path. The driving model aims to mimic the functioning of a real-life truck, so you have to pay attention when turning corners on slippy roads, and be mindful of your surroundings if you wish to reach from one location to the next. The seamless open world looks beautiful, but exploring every corner of the map will require some skill and familiarity with the mechanics of SNOWRUNNER. MAFIA Definitive Edition. MAFIA Definitive Edition is an excellent reimagining of the 2002 classic, and it's one of the most beautiful-looking games on the list. Set against the backdrop of 1930s America, Mafia tells an emotional story of Tommy Angelo as he gets involved with the city's biggest crime families. It's chock full of twists and turns that'll keep you guessing, and the writing and performances are consistently top-notch. The open world doesn't have much to do in terms of side content, but it's a well-realized virtual space that's meant to be explored in a thorough fashion. Watch Dogs. With just 3 entries, Watch Dogs has managed to turn itself into a behemoth of a franchise with millions of fans. And while Watch Dogs 2 and Legion do get a lot of well-deserved love, the original is generally considered to be the black sheep of the family due to its graphical cutbacks and overtly grim story. But if you look past the visuals and the slow narrative, you will find a genuinely worthwhile experience within 2013's Watch Dogs. Everything from the hacking to the stealth-based combat and side content comes together to create a dynamic world that shouldn't be missed out on by fans of the franchise. The Hunter: Call of the Wild. The Hunter: Call of the Wild is a hunting game that tasks you to hunt different species of wildlife in a well-realized jungle setting. The gameplay is extremely methodical and requires you to study your surroundings and your target before making a move to have a shot at success. Sure, that might not be as captivating as blasting through hordes of enemies as you would do in contemporaries, but the Hunter has a distinct charm that will slowly grow on you. Green Hell. Set against the backdrop of the Amazon rainforest, Green Hell is everything that one would wish out of an open-world survival game. You get deserted in the middle of nowhere, and it's up to you to gather whatever resources are available and use that to defeat any and all enemies in your path. It isn't anything particularly special, but Green Hell does provide a solid set of mechanics that remain satisfying to engage with right through to the end. Rust. Much like Green Hell that we discussed before, Rust is also another open-world survival game where you collect resources, craft gear, and build settlements, the whole 9 yards. But what separates Rust from its contemporaries is that the maps are procedurally generated, which makes each run different than the last, and you can also come up with all sorts of interesting game modes, since Rust supports modding. The developer has done a great job when it comes to content updates, and Rust is chock full of in-depth gameplay systems and features that will keep you coming back time after time. Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda might not have been released in the best of states, but post-launch updates and patches have helped stabilize the technical aspects of the game by a significant margin. And because of that, there's a high chance that players will be able to enjoy the many merits of Andromeda, which includes, but is not limited to, the thrilling firefights that punctuate every step of this intergalactic journey. Riders Republic. Riders Republic is an absolute thrill ride for fans of racing, thanks to some pretty satisfying movement mechanics that underpin the moment-to-moment gameplay. You can control anything from a bike to a skateboard to a wingsuit, and much more. And the open world is a dynamic playground with varied geometry that's home to plenty of different racecourses for each of these vehicle types. It's a pretty unique experience, and that should be worth a try for fans of racing games. Just Cause 4. The Just Cause series is best known for its signature brand of chaos-driven gameplay, and Just Cause 4 is all about amping that up to new heights. The game was released in 2018, and while it was received well enough, Just Cause 4 also slipped under the radar for most players. And that's a shame, because the open world in this game is a playground of possibilities, and you're encouraged to use your tools in creative ways and carve your own fun in this large sandbox. Prototype 2. Prototype 2 puts players in the shoes of James Heller and takes us through a revenge plot against a corrupted Alex Mercer, who you might remember from the first game. Prototype 2 builds upon what came before in interesting ways, and everything from the traversal to special abilities and the scale of combat has been expanded upon in a meaningful fashion. Of course, it's still all about the power fantasy at its core, which remains as satisfying as ever, making for a constantly enjoyable experience. Despite its age, Prototype 2 remains an enjoyable romp that holds up surprisingly well to this date. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every single day on GamingBolt. So please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.